to welcome you to the world's motherfucking greatest podcast in the world.
We got vocal Charles now. Charles Smith.
Black History Month is upon us, and because it's here, who else better to give you than us a Black History Month episode? So, I think the last time we did this was like maybe 2 years ago, and Jussie Smollett, Juicy Smollett, a French actor, was out here fucking up for.
That was the funniest part about that.
Yeah,
They
that's
called
it.
that
That's
nigga
it.
a French actor. I was like, hey, son, get the fuck out of here.
Was out here fooling and really fucked up the Black History Month. So, that was 2019, and then we had Corona. Even though we didn't really know Corona was coming, real niggas felt it because some of us was in tune. I was, for sure. But it's neither here nor there. But now we have this year, and last year was an interesting year for Black people because, like, you remember those like 3 weeks when the world was like, yo, we fuck with Black people. Like,
Yeah.
Black people are lit. Like,
And it wasn't Black History Month.
and it wasn't Black History Month. And it wasn't just like some, like, we like your dances and your songs, like, and your, like, food sometimes. It was really off some, like, yo,
We appreciate you.
we appreciate you. Like, your life matters. Like, like, you shouldn't be killed by the state just for being Black. Like, they were putting up squares. Well, in retrospect, did they really care, or did they just not want to get?
Because we're in a pandemic. Everybody had time.
Yeah, they didn't want to just get attacked. They thought a revolution was going to come, so they didn't really want to.
It's like you got to stand with them or
Also profitable.
That's
stand
true.
with them or you get attacked.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
You
so.
don't think it's that anymore?
I think as we get to 2021, like the first month has already been kind of rocky. Wednesdays seem to be the day where shit gets crazy. So I'm looking forward to these Wednesdays in February to see what happens next. But I think that people care, but they just care in a different way now. So people are trying to do this like justice for all thing, and I think that's their way of saying they care about Black people. Like, they're trying to group Black people with like the injustices of like everybody, and be like, anybody who's having bad things done to them, we should care about. And I think that's the cop out. I think that's the cop out. I think most people who really care about like the Black Lives Matter, like actual stuff, and helping Black people get shunned. I think a lot of times people who directly care about helping Black people in America, Black Americans, get a really kind of like, oh, yeah, you're being, why are you only trying to help them? And they get like, oh, you should be trying to help everybody who's a minority or everybody who's in trouble. So I think that's really we've got these two different groups now. We got a faction of people who are trying to help all Black people, or Black people who consider them Black people in America, and a faction of people who are saying, oh, you should be trying to help everybody who's who's facing some sort of injustice. And I think that's like the pull and tug, and like that's what this Black History Month, I think, is really coming down to. It's like a lot more ideology. Like, I'm hearing people talk about, like, I was in this joint with a Black Trump supporter, a Black MAGA Trump supporter.
In the clubhouse?
Yeah, on the train yesterday. And he was saying some shit, and I was just like, all right, I see what you want. Like, niggas, I think, like, most people who are Black, and this is just my opinion, I think understand America better than anybody else. So I think like Black people, like Black History Month is a weird thing because like it's to highlight Black people in a way that is somewhat not even necessary, because like almost everything that like happens in this country, it happens either to or for Black people
Or because of.
So like how we look at drug epidemics in this country, it happened to black people once, and now that shaped how we looked at it again when it happened to white people most recently.
Middle class white people, particularly.
Like a lot of things we think about, I think like even like public housing was something that was done like it in its essence was created because of war. Like they needed housing so people could get back and forth to manufactories that were war. And then after that they were like, oh shit, this is a way we could boom 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 house black people in a very sort of condensed space. This was like blueprint
Condensed and controlled way.
in a very controlled manner. So like once again, things happening to and for black people. So I really think that when you look at the history of like the country, in particular this one, there's no really thing that happens like even when you think of something like abortion, the sterilization of black women is very key to like abortion and reproductive rights and that whole thing. So why you know they got that clip of Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston being like, we don't need a month, Black History Month, Black History every day, every year, every month. Da, da, da. I mean, while they were joking, they were so fucking right. Like there's no facet of the inner workings. Like yo, even like some shit like the Emancipation Proclamation. What is that about? Civil War.
I'm going to say black man died and started the revolution.
Civil War.
Crispus Attucks.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Civil War. What was that about? Like, a lot of these things, when you look at the history of the country, once again, either to or for black people. So, like, even the idea of voting, think about that concept. Like, no, white men didn't come here and be like, oh, we're fighting for the... No, if you were white and you came here, you could vote.
For sure.
Maybe
if you were
don't
black
vote.
and you came here, you were property.
You know, so like all of the inner workings of this society that we know are really much rooted in the functions of things happening to or for black people. So I think this Black History Month, there needs to be more emphasis or focus on why is that? So what does that mean? Like, so if a country whole identity is based on how they treat one group of people and everybody else falls in line, because that's the thing, like anybody else who comes to the country kind of falls in between white and black. And the whole thing is that you want to be not associated to black as much as possible, because that's the part that gets you sort of chastised the most, stereotyped the most. Being connected to black, being connected to white is better in this society. Maybe that's changing. I don't know how close we are yet. Maybe seems like we're working, but we'll see if it really flows out to be that way. But
I don't think colorism is going to die out anytime soon.
So do you think colorism will become as prevalent or maybe like supersede racism?
In a way, I feel like it has superseded racism because it's across more demographics. But racism is racism. So
you know what's interesting? There was a quote, I think it was the Malcolm X quote. I don't know if it was the exact one you said, but it was something I was reading where he was like, I think it was from the joint you said where he says, I've been to places all around the world, and people who were white, they would be considered white in America, but they don't think white
because they're not in
because
America.
they're not in America. And that's an interesting concept, because I think that's who
I got that experience at the mosque, bro. Like dead ass. Like I was at the mosque and I was just like, this white guy doing here. Then I thought about it. I was like, he's probably not American. And then I went and talked to him. He wasn't. He's from Turkey.
Yeah.
And he didn't see himself as white. And he was just like, he didn't necessarily, like the interaction with him wasn't like, even though we both Muslim, you know what I'm saying, we in the mosque. But it's just like at the same time, like, even if I saw him like outside of that, he would stand and be like, "Oh, what's up, Chris?" You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'd be like, "Oh shit, like, what's good, bro?"
My question would be, how do both of you differentiate what colorism is versus racism? Because obviously, we're gonna say colorism is again probably skin tone versus racism being the obvious being white and black. But obviously, it has to be something deeper than that if it's two different things. You know what I'm saying? Because white and black obviously is colorism. So at the end of the day, what is colorism? We're talking about maybe someone being my complexion versus Charles's complexion type shit.
Colorism.
So,
And that's what
colorism also racism. Then?
Yeah, that's what I said.
So what is racism at that point?
And like
Would everything be considered colorism at that point?
I think racism has a rap because of the way that it specifically went to black people, like Jim Crow laws, hangings, like being 3/4 of a person, like that's racism. You know what I'm saying? Like in racism, like you set up laws for racism and things like that. And then when it comes to like colorism, I guess it's like it's more so culturally and it's more widely spread. That's why I say it's more so like along demographics, because it's just like you can be a dark-skinned Haitian and a light-skinned Haitian and a light-skinned Haitian. Like they don't look at dark-skinned Haitians the same. Like same thing in like Cuba and things like that. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like I agree that they're both like the same thing in essence, but at the same time, it's like when it comes to racism, like that's hatred. Like if I think you're a racist, then it's just like it's on go with you. You know what I'm saying? Like I ain't even like, but if it's colorism, then it's just like, oh yeah, it's like
I think colorism is more that you see each other as the same.
yeah.
I think colorism takes precedence though. Like if you're just talking about like racism, right? It's always the house nigga and the field nigga, right? At the end of the day,
We got to kill that stigma too, because there was a lot of dark skinned men working in the house, and he was usually the one snitching.
Okay, so if that's that can be true, but at the end of
If
the
you
day,
look at the movie Life, the one that don't tote the gun line, bro.
at the end of the day, the house nigga was a light skinned nigga, and the field nigga was a dark skinned nigga. So
Allegedly,
yeah, that's what I'm saying, allegedly, and that pretty much just takes it back to colorism at that point.
for sure.
So maybe colorism is the ultimate like thing that we should be mad at versus racism at that point. I'm just saying.
No,
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at it. I'm not.
No,
I'm not mad at racism. Or
I
colorism,
agree with your point.
But I just think that maybe racism isn't the ultimate thing. Maybe the conversation of colorism that we have at point. Maybe
Because
that's
like I was
the
saying,
bigger
like
issue.
colorism, like for instance, like the white Hispanics, like the what's his name, Ted Cruz's and the Julio Castros of the world, the Cuomos of the world. I mean, he's Italian, so he's white. Like he was born in America. Like you're white, my guy. Like your parents might have been immigrants, but you were born in America. Like you know what I'm saying? You're a white man for real. So it's just like you have the exotic last name, but
I think that's the issue. I think colorism is rooted in racism. Like
yeah.
colorism has.
Which is worse is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I think it all depends on what you see as a bigger issue. Do you see it as like a issue of like what is good or bad for the culture, or what is good or bad for the society? So I think racism is a societal issue, because if you see yourself as black in any way, you will be affected by racism.
For sure.
And that's the thing about colorism. You can now use it to your benefit. That's the
I'm black, but I'm not as black.
exactly. So there's a weird scope that allows for colorism to be beneficial in a way
Hispanic,
that
but I'm
like
not as Hispanic.
why would you want to dismantle it as hard as you want to dismantle racism? Because if you dismantle racism, then yes, black everybody. That's what I think my greater issue is that like a lot of people who want just everybody to be equal seem to be people who don't actually solely struggle as a black person. They struggle as a black person in some weird shape or form, and I hate to be that person, but it's just like
That's a fact.
some black people exclusively are black people and they don't have any other. Like, my grandma isn't this or that. I'm not a little bit of that. I don't boom, boom, boom this.
We black.
You know, they just black people. So it's a lot easier, I think, for other people to be like, hey, yeah, why not help everybody who's struggling? And people are like, well, historically, and that's my thing, like, why not give black people reparations? If not give black people reparations, shut the fuck up about certain shit. Like, more black people should get certain jobs in, like, Hollywood. Because there's been 200 years, well, not in Hollywood, but, like, you know, like, the country has, like, 155 years, like, legally on the books of just, like, being shitty towards black people. Like, since the Emancipation Proclamation, they have still been shitty. Like, since the time they legally said, okay, we'll stop being shitty, they still continue to. So, like, legally, they've just been connivingly shitty for another 100 years. Why not just give these
And
people?
in some states, they're still shitty.
So why not just give these people extra? Like, yes.
I got a question. Right, totally off topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not off topic, but it's on topic. Let's say us three, right? We walk into a Caucasian establishment.
Mm-hmm.
No names are being said because obviously him and I have very Caucasian names. You obviously don't. Who do you think they talk to first, or maybe feel the least threatened by?
You.
All right. Are you? All right. Let's do this.
I didn't have my answer for it.
Let's do this
so
like
this.
this.
Is his answer.
Is everybody dressed?
that
Is
was good.
everybody?
Everybody
dressed
dressed
like this?
fine.
No, like, is everybody dressed like this right now?
We can say everyone's dressed like this right now, and we can also
then it's
do
him.
and everybody is dressed.
They come and smack to me.
Yeah. If everyone's dressed like this right now,
I think I'm with Chris. I think they might come at me first.
I'm saying this because I've experienced it.
I'm saying because
I've been to those establishments and they don't welcome. Like, oh, you're not from. One, it's not. You're not from here. And then it's two. It's like
I just feel like you guys are both on the same
light-skinned,
on the
yeah.
same token,
But
and
I'm saying it's a different type of.
I just feel as though
different type of light skin here.
it is.
It's a different type of light skin.
I'm not denying.
Obviously, the people that are here, they don't see. You know, we're sitting down. Obviously, he's a taller, light skinned man than me.
That's what I'm saying.
And
Unless
I'm
they're
fully bearded.
that's my
goatee.
that's what I'm
You
saying.
just look. But let's say we all come in there dressed to the. You know,
And 9 times out of 10, I have a kufi on.
And that would be my issue. If he has a kufi, then yes, they're
why-
coming
that's-
to you first.
that's why he
That's what I'm
says
saying.
right
As
now.
long as you have on
Yeah.
that hat, I would assume that a taller, light skinned man wouldn't be as offensive. Like, he's slender. I don't see the issue here. You have a full beard and you're kind of stocky. I hate to break it to you. Like,
You're not bringing anything.
no, I'm just saying, like, in the
I know my body.
and I'm
That's wild.
in
I know my body.
It's
All
the
he said,
dynamics.
you took shame.
Stocky, yes.
You took the shot.
course.
You took the shot.
I'm just saying, like, that's
Wait.
you got right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Also
I
here
don't
for
see.
jokes always.
Also have the jokes.
I think that's what would be the issue. Like, I think we live in a society like people feel more comfortable talking to taller people.
But let's say we go in there, you're fine. You know what I'm saying? You're not Frederick Douglass. He's koofied up, and you know, no hat for me. You think it's still the same?
Him koofied up. That's where it gets crazy. He's 3. He's 3.
He's
Yeah.
three.
He's 3
I'm
off
the
us.
last
Between
of
me and
one.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm short and stocky. You're tall with your braids, or maybe the short haircut. Do you think it differentiates between
Yeah.
the braids and the short
Yeah,
haircut?
definitely.
So if you had the braids, I'm
You're one.
Yeah,
and if you didn't, you're
we can toss it up. It could be
even
1A,
though you're
1B.
still the darker.
I was gonna say, it's a
It
toss-up.
could be a 1A, 1B.
White
But,
people like darker people.
here's the thing. I think white people have an infinity for black people in a very weird way.
They do.
When I mean white people, I'm talking about white people who don't like black people.
Yeah.
So they have, like, the way we see colorism, they don't. They're like, oh, they're all niggers. Now let me just decide, like,
We are.
yeah, I just said white people who don't like
Yeah,
black
no,
people.
understood.
So, like, let me decide how I'm going to gauge them. So they have, so, like, I don't, like you said, so that field versus house slave stuff, I think that is more prevalent. Like, doesn't say, I think that's more prevalent in the minds of white people as much than it is in black people.
I
Like,
think that's the colorism though. The house versus, you know.
but
feel.
exactly. So I think that's what it comes to. It's easy ways to get to like I think very blanketed ideas. So it's like all right, light skinned people work in the house, dark skinned people work. So it's just an easy way to just.
I was gonna mention if we bring Katie in, who's gonna talk for it? Obviously, they're going to Katie. You know what I'm saying? Katie is the
Oh yeah, KD's the most welcoming looking
But,
man.
but here's the thing, like you see, like those all those things they do about like what would be like how people will look in like 2050, like what the average person, what does it look like? It's a person who's like maybe a tad or two less lighter than Katie, like a little bit darker than you,
Facts.
maybe a little darker.
We
than
all
you.
walk in the room. They're going to Katie first.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. I think like even if we're just talking about this whole complexion thing, he trends towards what they're saying. People are
African American man.
No, just a human.
Because that's the whole point. Like that's the I love
they-
that you know that chart with Mulatto, Dusty, and Fusty. I love that chart because I think it's a true representation of how people see blackness and whiteness in a very like weird scope. So you can have some of it and not all of
And
it.
that's just, I want people to know that's a Spanish chart.
Haven't seen it.
Yes, because the Spaniards
Charles, like, we know.
are the beginning ones who have this. Like my man Brad sends me this really good link to the stories about like this document that's written in like the 1400s about the Spaniards basically deciding like what race was. So like classifying,
That's what I was
different,
talking about on the John with Montez. and then,
specific designation of group.
Yeah.
Negro,
It's like you're only
Negro, African.
yeah, because people were only
Whatever the-
classified as mulatto if their father was the Spanish male. If their mother was the Spanish one, they weren't classified as mulatto. They were classified as something else. So the patriarchy and like how they classified that shit is how it went. Cause like that's why people talking about like this mulatto shit. It's like, all right, like she mixed, but she not mulatto. Like she's
No, she's mulatto in the American
and in
because
America
that's how
to
that's
view. Yeah, that's how they
well that's how the
adopted it.
French and
Yeah.
when the French and that's how the French did it.
Yeah.
So yes, black and white mixed
Yeah.
mulatto and that's why they kept. It's very interesting, like because I think that chart is interesting to see the records because that's what colorism is about. It's about deciding just how much black you have in you. Like I think they face colorism far more, in my opinion, in places like Brazil and other places.
for sure.
And there where like people intermingle, I think, in a far more like poorer state. So it's far more like everything is far more enhanced. Like when poverty is far more around people, the idea of like, hey, we get a little bit more because we're darker, or we get a little bit less because we're darker, that is a very heightened sense in a way that I think like you probably felt it here in like the 1920s or 30s. I wasn't alive, I couldn't tell you. So that's what I'm saying. We've seen it in history. Like a lot of your great sort of public black figures are not darker people. I don't think this is by any coincidence. like a lot of your famous black American sort of media, like, hey, the media knows them as like black subjects. They don't tend to be darker people.
Wesley was the last one.
No, I'm not even talking about in like entertainment and stuff. I'm talking about like just like the pantheon of like you
you're
think
talking
of
about,
black
like,
Americans
leaders. Yeah.
and leaders. Like they don't tend to be darker skinned people. They tend to be
Brown in life.
fair brown people. From your Thurgood Marshalls to your whatever you want to call it. Like I think
Rosa
James
Parks.
Baldwin. Yeah, I think James Baldwin is an interesting like person, a figure for his time. Like
I was an ugly nigga.
I think that's why a lot. You're so disrespectful. I think that's why.
Good dude.
I think that's why a lot of his words resonated. Like even people like darker skin and people who don't, I would say, confined to like conventional norms of American standards of beauty. Their words hit a little harder with, I think, the masses. But like a lot of your young, beautiful black intellectuals of those time periods fair skinned people. Whether entertainment, politics, you pick the industry. So I think colorism is like you said, it might be a deeper issue, but I think it's all rooted in racism because colorism is on the spectrum of black and white. Who can get closest to white? And why would we be trying to get close to white? Because of racism.
Like that card on the motherfucking Family Guy jump.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's okay, boom, boom, boom. So if you, and that's the thing about racism too, like, I mean, colorism. There can be black people who are white. Like, let's be honest. There are black people who are white.
Of all skin tones.
Like, and that's the thing. Black people will tell you, black people come in all skin tones and then tell you that, oh, someone is discriminating them just because of the skin tone. So there's some weirdness going. Like, blackness is not just about. There's people who are far more fair than me who will tell you they are black, and when I tell, and other people might be like, no, they're white. So what do you do then? That's the thing about, like, see, and that's the thing, I think that's the real part about Black history. Like, Black history isn't like this neat subject matter. It gets kind of tricky.
Listen, man, Black History Month, it shouldn't be the shortest month out of the year.
That's your...
That's where you got this
That's
from?
what everybody been saying. So, I mean, niggas want to every 4 years give you an extra day. It shouldn't be like that.
Niggas need to read a book.
What book should they read?
I mean, Google got a lot of them.
What book should they read about this month?
I have no Black history
pertaining
month.
to this month.
I have no Black History Month books, but I can point you in the direction of W.E.B. Du Bois. My good man, since he just like created the month, so him and I believe it was Charles Carter.
I was about to say, I thought all I know is I think it
Y'all
was like...
explain some history of when this month became Black History Month?
No, because that's what I'm saying.
Like they should know this.
No, I don't know. Bro, this is my thing.
Explain it.
Black History Month
This
was like
is
in
my
the
thing. Black History Month,
I believe it was the 60s.
it's not like, to me, it's not one of those things that needs to be like fun facted.
It doesn't.
So like, no, to be perfectly honest, like knowing when, like who founded it, it's just like, I think that's my point earlier. Like everything in this country, the foundation is tied to black people.
I can't agree, but go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's what's up.
Son, the way the insurrection happened was built by slaves, so that was tied to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Here, before anybody goes on the tangents, I honestly want to be educated about this, right?
okay.
We just had an episode talking about how holidays may be fake. Maybe
Yes.
Valentine's Day is fake or whatever. So that means that this month of Black History Month has been made up
Yes.
Yeah.
mythologically. And we said who, presented these holidays as to what it is.
Yes.
So who is the person that
Bro.
presented Black History Month as February?
Okay,
That's
so
all I asked.
there's somebody who did it, and it's either like you said, it's Carter.
I believe his name was Charles Carter,
I want to know
but W.B. Du Bois also had some
What
play in
year?
that.
No, he did this a long time ago. Like
I'm about to say.
like the coined the idea of black. This is
Yeah.
This
But
is
when
like
did
the
it become a
1800s.
I believe it was like, I don't want to lie to
Yeah,
you.
just let him Google it.
My 20-year span is the
Bro,
40s
this is
and 60s.
my thing is that this is something that
My thing is, I think
I
it's
remember-
probably like some 60 shit off some MLK, even though I know you don't fuck with
Nah,
MLK.
it's-
but even
it's
if
It's not that I
before
don't
that.
fuck with MLK. I just feel like he get
Bro,
too big of a hype during one month.
there was
and
a
it's
guy
just like,
before, bro.
and there was people before MLK. Like
It was the Carter. His last name was Carter.
he was the forefront.
I remember for a fact. Like
Medgar Evers was the forefront.
We don't
this
know.
is some shit that they
And
were.
that's sad. He crawled so Martin could run.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody has to run.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what Black history turns into. Like
1976.
76. After MLK, it's already passed. So I'm sure it was some, Martin Luther King died for this month type shit. When he died, 63?
Carter G.
69.
Woodson, I
Carter.
apologize.
That's what I'm saying. Like these are things. These are like.
Me and Charles knew it was Carter, though.
All I'm saying is that these are old. Like the idea of even Black History Month is a lot older. Than, like these are not like you can even trace. I'm sure you get someone to do the deep history, you're gonna find something about Frederick Douglass and them. Like this, that's what I'm saying. All this idea of like black, you know, a time for black greatness or whatever, a time to learn the history of black people. It's not like a relatively new concept. The marketization of it, like all the other holidays, yes, is relatively new. So the 1976, yes, makes sense. Where people could,
Black people was
when you
making
do the
money
black,
in the
red, and
70s
blue,
too.
when you do the black, red, and green, and you know you
Pan-Africanism.
do all that, you connect all that to the holiday. All of that is relatively new, yes, and I believe you're right. The death of Martin Luther King Jr. probably did have
Had to
a lot
spark some shit.
to
Oh, yeah,
play
for
a
sure.
lot with just
That was-
the idea
That was
of
probably the 10th year anniversary of it. When did he die?
I think
So I'm saying
68,
68,
68.
69.
I think Kennedy
One of them
died in
3 years.
63.
Okay.
One of them years.
Yeah, Kennedy died in 63. Malcolm died in 65. Martin died in 68.
60 sound crazy.
Yeah,
60s was vicious.
But that's my greater thing. Like all of that is far more important to the history, in my opinion, than knowing Carter G. Woodson. No, just like you should know what he did, not
we
that
live by a street named after a black man, 50.
not that he was intricate to like founding the holidays.
Hanson Highway.
Like his
That was a
actual
black man.
work is far more intricate, I think, and important to this movement or being better than, oh yeah, February. Like who cares if it's February? Let it be June. Like if you feel that's a better month,
Yeah.
make
Considering
it.
the fact that it's Juneteenth.
Listen, whatever you want to do, I don't think anyone is stopping anybody from making the holiday month a different month. People who just don't like change. It's been February because somebody decided February worked
And it had historical significance to
to whatever they were thinking. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure something
probably
was signed.
Emancipation Proclamation. I think it was a big up to
Yeah, I think,
Abraham Lincoln or some shit.
and that's the whole point. Like how we feel about Abraham Lincoln now is far different than
Than
people
what they
felt in
felt
1976.
For sure.
So I that's to me like all of that. You're right. It is not irrelevant, but I think what is far more important is that like the conversation you guys randomly had about like who's important to this movement. Because I kind of disagree with both of y'all. Martin Luther King was only there because the women in the church decided that he was going to be the pastor and not other pastors. Like clergy people voted and said, "Bring in him," because he didn't have that much baggage because he was a young pastor. Like literally, organizations in the church voted to bring in Martin Luther King Jr. as a because they said these other pastors were too toxic. They had a lot of baggage. Like
They were older and he was more
yes,
progressive thinking.
Martin was the performer. I don't think anybody can deny him. He died for this.
He did.
We were just talking about how people love freedom of
Yeah.
speech so much,
He
and
died for
literally
speech.
the one of the sort of patron saints of black people in this country died because he dared have a different type of freedom of speech. Like he dared go public with what he was saying, and a lot of people were listening. So freedom of speech ain't that free. I would just argue that like even people like Martin, the only reason why he got to his place was because he had a group of people backing him, largely black women. Largely black women. I'm just talking about his actual foundation into getting here. Largely black women saying, "Okay, yes, he can do it," and that's my thing. Like those people are far more important to Black history than because everyone knows a leader. Everyone knows Drake. You know who's really important to Drake? 40,
For sure.
OVO Noah, other people like that, Chubbs. So, in knowing the story of him, those people are kind of important. We all know Drake. Drake is the person we see. Those other people who make him what he is are just important, if not more important to that. So I think like that's what I'm just like. I agree with you. Like, yes, know the basics. Like have some respect for the whatever. But like if you're gonna be stuck on that and not even care about anything past that, like yes, you know why it started in February. Now what? Because I feel like that's a lot. We do a lot of that. Like, oh yeah, we know why people did Independence Day. Okay, so now what? Yeah, they were fighting for their freedom, liberty. What does that actually mean? That's why you can go fucking 200 years in like basically enslaving people and talking about, oh yeah, freedom of, free rights of man, because no one is actually questioning
What you doing?
what you're doing. Everyone's just like, oh yeah, you did that on that day.
Yeah.
End of it. You got freedom. End of it. You got liberty. End of it. Like these man-made concepts, because that's what they are. Freedom is a man-made concept. It truly is. Like, what does it mean to be free? I don't know.
I can't call it.
None of us can call it. We all got different definitions. I got people telling me it's not natural to smoke weed. So it's just like it's different shit for different folks. Like, no, dead ass. Like, what is freedom? Like people saying like, bro, I dead ass had a life insurance exam, and they did all this shit, and knowing that like you have to tell them. I was like, yo, I smoke weed, like weekly. They were like, okay.
They up the preem?
No, because when you do the test,
You don't find nothing wrong.
Exactly.
You good?
like when you literally, I got back on my work. I show you. I was looking at I'm like, damn, like everything is in the good.
Yeah.
Nothing is like
In the
everything
bad,
is kind of
yeah.
just like in the normal. Some shit is kind of on the lower
down end,
side,
yeah.
on the higher, but nothing is like extremely bad. It's just right, and I'm like,
Okay. A few things I gotta get under control, but other than that,
But other than that, like the dude was like, "Oh, your blood pressure is good." I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I just if I don't leave this house, anytime I leave this house is to walk a mile around Brooklyn and come back. Go to the bodega. Go drop off my mail at the place that I drop off my mail at. Go pick up food. Like I do all that walking. I don't really do too much. I walk back and forth.
I thought you said you had issues, guy.
Huh?
I thought you said you had, some issues going on, bro. That's what your tweet said. My bad.
What tweets?
gotta stop doing things in a bad mood. I don't think this episode for that one.
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't have to do, but yeah, how about that? I don't think that has to do anything. But I think by more so, that's what I say.
Yeah.
Nah,
He
nah.
put me off too.
You didn't
Tom.
bring that up to, you know what I mean? Well, primary care doctor, you didn't bring it up.
I mean,
Oh no, it was a like inspector, so I haven't. I actually got to set that up. But I've been taking too many COVID tests. I be in the doctor's office. I be like, dog, it's just too much. Like the doctor's office kind of makes me it's too much.
that always been make me
Black History Month is a weird thing. Like talking about that, like
you just sitting on a slab.
the medical like history
Cold-ass
with Black
little
people.
Piece of fucking.
Yeah, they're always cold. It's very weird.
Like,
Like
take your clothes off.
You
I'm
want
like,
to take my blood? No, nigga. I don't want
what are you doing with that?
the fuck.
nah, I think
Why
like,
you need so much?
and I think that's the weird thing about
You
Black.
in the wrong vein. You in the wrong vein.
You're fooling.
Fuck outta
That's the
here.
issue with Black History Month being like so big of a thing that like
Ouch.
niggas put all of it on February and then we leave it there. So like,
That's the thing.
and that's an issue here.
That's the month.
But that's the thing. Like,
It
there's
comes and goes so quick.
Black people don't have Black people's issues or Black people's beings are too complex and don't have enough time to try to jam pack into 4 weeks of
Anything.
rapid events and learning.
Are you not mad at the fact that there's no like White History Month
Why would I be
to
mad?
combat the fact of that we have a month?
Why would I be mad? But that's
You
the
can
saying,
pick
it's
up
like-
but
that's the-
It's no white
Merriam-Webster
history.
book.
But that's
and read white
the
history.
issue with only thing Black History Month is actually here to do is to teach you about the things that have happened to Black people here in this country in particular.
Black history
Nothing is not taught.
surpasses
Like
America.
the way how I said all those other things are intertwined with Black people. That is something that we're breaking down to people. No one do people think of it like that
Like when Charles brought up Brazil, there's more black people in Brazil than there is anywhere else in the world
outside of Africa.
outside of Africa.
But that's the thing about it. Like when you think of
And they're in one city, like one state of Brazil.
when we did that episode about like Black men not being able to play the same role in the patriarchy, that's like an actual like that's part of Black history. Like why did it take 100 years for there to be one Black senator in the United States Congress?
Uno.
Like that's a very relevant part of Black history that doesn't get discussed about because we're trying to jam pack events, celebrations, fun facts. So why would I like white people don't have to deal with that? There's not Do white people in this country have anything where they're like, yo, we haven't had something for 100 years? Like, think about it. Like, think about minority groups in this country. Like, let's be honest with yourself. The Supreme Court has had 114 justices in the 200 years it has been an entity.
Yes, well, like
220 years.
Yes.
It has 114 justices.
6 on black.
2 have been black.
Wow.
2 in a 200 plus year old organization, establishment, institution, whatever you want to frame it as.
Color, you're right.
There have been 2 black people.
2 black men at that.
2 black men. There have been, I believe, 8 Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're just talking about minority groups, if you're going to talk about like all of these things, this is the conversations that need to be had. That like in a country of black people and all the things that have happened to them, they have only been able to get 2 people who look like them
in the highest court.
In the highest court ever.
Ever.
Wow. Jewish people who are also a minority group who have not been in this country as long as black people have been able to get 8 people on the highest court. So then you have to ask yourself, what are the issues here?
Because technically they've only been here for almost like 80 years.
So the issues are not just about being a minority. And that goes back to my point earlier that everyone's trying to group the injustices of everybody together. Mm-hmm. But that's not how it works, because while both groups are minority groups, one group has been able to permeate the culture and be able to get things, be able to be self-sufficient in a way that black people have not. And why is that?
One black
Someone
president.
has to ask the questions and have people say, hey, this is why or this is not. I don't have the answers, but I'm asking the questions. I'm very curious as to why that could be. And I think that's more important to Black History Month, like forcing people to say, hey, how much black ownership is in this country and why is that? Look at other minority groups and saying, how is it possible that other people with less time in this country can get that? What is going on? Then I think you would find like people look at things like housing discrimination and all these other things, and you say, "Hey,
they passed laws in the 60s or 70s for motherfucking
FHA
for Asians
to not give people certain loans." So when you ask these certain questions, then you say, "Oh, why is that?" So if all these are people or minority groups who are fighting for the same thing, why weren't the discrimination passed the same? So if the discrimination wasn't the same, why would the reconciliation be the same? Period. Why should everybody get to eat off of things that were specifically done
to us,
to black people in America? I don't see like why other groups should be like, oh yeah, boom, boom, boom. Well, it's something is bad, so that's true. There's no denying something is bad, but people who have like literally like property values, people have been able to accumulate wealth over years. Black people have been shunned out of that. So do they not deserve to now benefit more than other people? I don't think that's unfair. So I think like that's what I'm gonna keep harping. I think that's what Black History Month really should be about, like forcing people to act why certain things are the way they are when it comes to black people in this country.
Like put emphasis on the dates that people be talking about.
Because how many times can you learn about Martin Luther King Jr.? How many times can you learn
about Malcolm X? How many times can you learn
I find out about new black historians
all the time,
weekly. The ones I've come across in the last couple months. Paul Robeson. Why do you know about Jackie Robinson and not Paul Robeson? You should wonder and ask yourself that. Charlene Mitchell. Why don't people know about her? You know, why don't people know about Martin Delaney? There are many people, and like, why does Ida B. Wells only get kind of talked about as like this one writer who did this one thing, and not the lady who was big on ending lynchings as, you know, a mainstay in the country. They still happen, but she ended up bringing mass attention to them.
Carriage getting surrounded by the Klan and shit at night on her way out the town and shit.
Like, there are plenty of women, men, other figures.
Specifically women, though.
You know,
like, we don't put enough. I don't think we put enough on the black. No, dead ass. Like when it comes to Black history, bro, like it's a lot of them, and they play a very big part. Like
I just said the boring part.
Yeah.
Like it's women both in name.
That's why I was circling back
Yeah,
around.
both in name and not in name, who play very big parts to movements and making sure that they facilitate it not just on some like, helping organize, but like moving the movement, being on the
Shirley
ground.
Chisholm, bro. Like they only portray her in a certain way, but it's way deeper when you get to know her story.
So I would just argue that knowing a few fun facts is ultimately going to be detrimental because that's what people are going to focus on. Oh yeah, this, and that, without ever digging or
Yes, tongue tied Charles. We haven't had that in a while.
diving deeper into what those things actually mean. Why did it take till 1976 to be a Black History Month?
That's my issue.
You see what I'm saying?
Jim Crow laws.
So that's the thing. Like
76 is not that long ago.
once again, why did it
It's
take?
only 50 years ago.
Once again, why did it?
We've
take?
lived almost half of a 50 year. You know what I'm saying?
My point.
Nigga, we're 30 at this point.
Exactly.
That
So
shit happened 20 years prior to us being born, bro. Which is nasty.
16, if you want to be
I'm gonna
exact.
say you want to be accurate.
No, I just wanted to round up.
No,
I'm
it's
sure.
fine. No knock on it.
It's nasty.
But that's the whole. But see, that's my greater issue.
My
That.
Nora's upset at me. That's why I voted for her.
But see, that's my issue. Like even when we talk about stuff like voting, like people romanticize that without talking about what it means for Black people to have to vote and why they had to go through all that. Like in a country, once again, of freedom, why were Black people being killed when they were trying to vote? Like in the 1940s and 50s, you can find many stories of Army veterans or men who've come back from certain places or who've gotten the right to vote being killed in certain places because they decided to vote. Once again, you tell me why that's not part of Black History Month. Like, you got to hear those stories in the middle of June and July.
Is it not a part of it though?
But
Are
is it?
these things not being told in the stories of
But I'm asking you, like in all the Black History Months, how many times has that been the focus? Like, give it a percentage versus telling stories of like Martin Luther King, of sit-ins, things that have happened that you probably know about.
I think all of that, like,
March on Washington.
I think all that basic watered down shit is like things we grew up on, like knowing about what Black History Month is. I think even though I haven't been to the museum in DC, I think that shit probably portrays a good image of what Black history is prior to whatever this month means to anybody. I haven't been there. Have you been to the
No, I like museums, but
Museum.
it's a lot to
been
get
to
in
the
there.
museum?
The Black History joint.
I worked there while they were setting it up.
You been to the museum? I mean, I was told about like, what I'm saying, like what it portrays. It didn't say it was just like, we're taking it from 1960, whatever.
No, I'm sure they did it.
Niggas was just saying
They got a slave ship in that jump.
That's what I'm saying. You got slave ships in that jump, so I'm pretty sure they're telling you about all this shit prior to
That's what's up.
what we were just talking about. It's not even that that's what's up. It's just like, yo,
No, that
What's
is.
the issue?
I don't have an issue. I'm just saying, like, I'm pretty sure they're documenting all this shit, like to explain why it should be more than the month of February. That should be.
But that's why you have a museum. Because that's the thing about what museums are for. The places, they're literally institutions so people can remember history.
Documentation.
Documentation of history. That's what museums are for. So there should be greater.
We should take a trip.
Yes, we should.
Yeah,
There should
I'm
be
with it.
greater emphasis on and access for that. My thing
The only
about
reason I haven't gone because trying to get in was just so
and
fucking
that's my
hectic.
biggest issue with most of
That's
these
a good
things.
thing. That's a good
I
thing.
mean, it is. It's a
No.
beautiful thing. I'm not mad at it.
My thing about that shit was because
It's not.
Hell no.
My thing is, it wasn't a lot of black people that were trying. It was like all races that wanted to see.
But here's my issue: like, why
It's also bad.
this idea of
I love that.
exclusivity to knowledge is weird to me. People keep asking,
Let you see what your people did.
No. This is my issue.
Fact.
This is my biggest issue. Everybody wants people to be more knowledgeable, and then people want to hoard knowledge. This is a museum. If people can pay to be here and be here at a certain time,
That's another issue.
set it up to
You have
be
to pay
there.
to go in this shit.
Well,
should.
that's how capitalism works in this country, and you guys love it. So we're not changing
It's
shit.
like we
So-
said, we don't get the same.
You're right.
We don't get the same fundamental freedoms
But
as other people.
But here's my issue: as long as
So
people,
if we had to even to get the funding for the museum,
they had to go through
they
shit
got
and
to go
shit.
through endless shit for them
Took
to
them
get
like
the
fucking 10 years.
exactly for
Right
them to
by
get
the
the
mind.
spot of land that they needed. Took longer than they did for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit was vicious, bro.
My thing about that is that why are you hoarding knowledge? If people want to learn and know about this stuff,
Because they didn't want that shit near the Smithsonian.
allow them
That
to
shit
do
right
that.
there.
Allow them
Slaves
to do
built the
that.
That shit
Smithsonian.
right there.
And people want to make money,
Crackers.
want to get endowments from people, want to do all these things that make them big shots in whatever fucking underworld of public funding that they get their money from, and this organization who gives them $5 million. Look at the donation. When you ever go to a museum, the best thing to do is like look at the donation list and look at who and what families and what places are sending these people money. $2 million from these people, $200,000 from this random person. Like it really gets kind of like, what's going on here? So for me, I fucks with the museum. You should have way more of that shit. You should have museums all across the country documenting all these things, and they should be easy and accessible.
For sure.
That's my biggest issue. I don't have no issue with that museum, but
Me either.
that they fucking try to make it like an exclusive. Bro, what the fuck?
Gotta get tickets.
It's a
Shits was
museum.
sold out for like months.
It's a
A
museum.
year.
And now look, we in a pandemic. Like I fucks with the MoMA, I fucks with the Met, fucks with the Guggenheim. Some of them you gotta pay, some of them you don't. But there are places in which knowledge is there, so you can look at these arts, you can look at these exhibits, and you can be like, maybe this is what niggas in ancient Rome were thinking. Maybe this is what China in the 1800s looked like. Maybe this is what metropolitan, whatever the fuck this is. Da 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 this, da 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 da. That's what museums allows you to do. But if you can't fucking get in there, tell me what.
Yeah.
Like even the Museum of Sex, a museum I have frequented quite a lot, which I really, really enjoy.
Freak boy.
In New York.
Freak
If
boy.
you're in New York, you should go to Museum of Sex. When you in
My
there,
man right there.
when you in there, like
Nigga Charles love him some titties.
Wow.
for sure, they have a titty exhibit that is very fun.
white
You can
titty
jump,
in that
you can
joint.
jump in that
No,
joint.
they got
It's
all the
very fun.
titties in
Bouncy
there.
balls. All right, but even in a museum like that, they have shit strictly dedicated to.
What's your question, babe?
Depending on whatever, they've had shit strictly dedicated to like black sex in industries throughout time. All these things are
Did they
unique.
touch the exploitation in that jump?
You a titty man?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we did. Yeah. Oh yeah, they did all that. Yeah, they had like sexploitation, black exploitation videos, all that shit.
B cup.
Relax. This is not the episode.
So my thing is like,
See?
when your museums have their places and they can do things, like I said, to get people into things.
For sure.
But when you're being fucking exclusive and hoarding of it, it's never going to help. And certain places are for certain things. So like, yo, if I want to learn about the black sex, the sex museum doing a sex exhibit on that is the place. Maybe not the African American Museum.
For sure.
And that is okay. And if they do want to touch on that, that's fine too. But I just think that, once again, this exclusivity to knowledge is also a thing that hinders Black History Month. Like, oh, you need to know X and Y. These people. No, there's no one who's important. I hate to break it to everybody. There's really no one who's more important than the movement in itself of
Hell no.
liberation of Black people.
Shit like like grains the same, babe. They all come together to make one.
Because when you gone, you gone.
For sure.
And they might give you a holiday, and that's about it.
For sure.
Rest in peace. MLK got a holiday.
Yeah.
That's
Only
about-
American with one.
Yeah. His own one.
Only American with one.
And see, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of that going on. Like, a lot of, like, giving people shit like that doesn't really count. What does that matter? All these, we talked about man-made holidays. So what is being the only American
That's a vacation
with a
day.
holiday, with a vacation day?
every company respects this holiday.
And not every
Let me start by saying
rest in peace to John McCain, but even John McCain voted for it not to be a holiday. So
a lot of companies don't respect it as a holiday.
never forget that when you guys big up John McCain so much. He voted for Martin Luther King. Oh, they love John McCain. When you died, they love you way more than when you was around. That's how the game goes.
Oh no, sir, we are not bigging him up.
My contract company don't respect the holiday,
This nigga.
but my job does. So. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got, bro. That's all I got.
Happy Black History Month. Do something good for a black
Got
person.
28 days.
Cash app them.
the least
Send them a Venmo.
The smallest month out of the
If
year.
you do not do something monetary or
support
with
black
a gift,
business.
it does not matter.
We are a black business.
Your love and your feelings do not matter.
HZThoughts.com/shop.
Shout out Lake Arbor Records,
For
Cops
sure,
of
shout out
Gear.
Lake Arbor Records.
Shout out Annie Up.
Shout out Annie Up.
Shout out Status Gang.
Shout out Daddy Caps.
Shout out every other
Minnesota
black
man.
young business owners.
Yay.
Happy Black History Month.